So, as most of you all know, last summer I was an intern for a church in Toronto, Canada for the months of June and July. And I'm sure that most of y'all also know that June is Gay Pride Month. So Toronto kind of went crazy for Gay Pride Month. There were rainbow flags in people's yards. There were rainbow flags in restaurants and businesses to show their support. Some churches even had rainbow flag banners on their church to show that they were accepting and loved everyone. However, this wasn't the case for the Presbyterian church that I worked for in Canada, and it was a big clash of cultures between the church and the city and how they viewed homosexuality and celebrating it. So that was something that I thought about a lot when I came to Ireland, because it was a different country, like Toronto was in a different country. And it was just something that I was wondering about, so that's what I decided to do this speech on. So in this speech, I'm going to compare three things: Toronto's cultural framework for sexuality, Ireland's cultural framework for sexuality, and the church's cultural framework for sexuality. So Toronto, Ireland, and the church. And I will start by describing each one. So I'm just going to base the Canadian Christian attitudes off of the church that I was with, so this doesn't mean every church in Canada's attitude, but the experience I had. So the church that I was on staff with in Toronto, they were definitely against homosexual activities, so they didn't see being tempted as a sin, but engaging in that temptation was definitely considered a sin. And I also noticed they expressed a lot of fear about their kids growing up in a culture that celebrates homosexuality and sexual expression. So there's a lot of just anxiety of how this is going to impact their children and their sexual and spiritual health. And I found a really good article called "What the Official Church is Teaching on Homosexuality." And that states pretty much the same thing, that the official church's stance is that if you are experiencing same-sex attraction, you should remain celibate. And then Toronto's attitude was vastly different to the church. So homosexuality was decriminalized in 1969, and government legalized same-sex marriage was permitted in 2001. And last summer marked Toronto's 39th annual Gay Pride Parade. So this celebration of this sexual expression has been going on for a long time. As you can see, these are both pictures of Justin Trudeau, who is the Canadian president, and you can see they combined the gay flag with the Canadian flag, so it is a big part of their culture, especially during June. And then Ireland, it was decriminalized in 1993, and government legalized same-sex marriage was in 2015, so pretty recently. As you can see, both of those dates are after Canada and Toronto's. However, Ireland does have its first openly gay Irish president right now, Leo Varadkar. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Anyway, that's him right there during a pride parade. And one reason that Ireland has been able to accept homosexuality more is because of the Catholic Church's sex scandals in the 1990s. So in the 1990s, there were just abuse and sex scandals in the church, and that caused its moral authority to go down in the eyes of the Irish citizens and allowed them to be more accepting of homosexuality. And now I'm going to look at some similarities, differences, and cultural frameworks. So some similarities between Ireland and Toronto: they both decriminalized same-sex relations, as I said earlier, government legalized same-sex marriage, and they both have parades and celebration for LGBTQIA rights. So they both are kind of in the same boat with that. And the church is the opposite. Most prohibit same-sex marriage, same-sex relations even, and it's seen as a sin and sometimes the worst sin. And one thing that I looked at when looking at differences between Canada and Ireland is the cultural framework of masculinity and femininity. So, a higher score means more masculine. Canada scored 52 on the masculine feminine scale, so more feminine, and Ireland scored 68. So that means Canada enjoys more quality of life, tends to have better work-life balance, enjoys values life, and then Ireland is more success-oriented and achievement-oriented than Canada, and I was thinking that this could be one reason why Canada accepted homosexuality sooner. As you notice, as I said before, the dates, they accepted it sooner than Ireland. And then another cultural framework I looked at was for the church. So I looked at uncertainty avoidance, and this indicates to what extent a culture programs its members to feel either comfortable or uncomfortable in unstructured situations. So, uncertainty avoiding cultures, they try to minimize the possibility of situations by strict behavior and moral codes, laws and rules, disapproval of deviant opinions, belief in absolute truth, and as you can see, most of those things describe the church. So the church is pretty structured, the way we participate, worship is pretty structured, and then the church also has strict behavioral codes, rules, and does believe in absolute truth. So the church has a high uncertainty avoidance, which differs from Ireland and Toronto, or Canada, in their lower uncertainty avoidance. So this could be a reason why Ireland and Toronto have accepted homosexuality and the church hasn't. Just one reason based off of culture. Obviously, there are other moral reasons for that also. So, in conclusion, Canada and Ireland are similar in their acceptance of homosexuality now. They differ in the timeline which they accepted it, and the church differs from both of them in its perspective on homosexuality, and maybe some of these reasons of differing has to do with culture and masculine, feminine cultural frameworks and uncertainty avoidance cultural frameworks. Thank you. Here are my sources.